back to a person who is envious about somebody else, and they've built a whole theology behind it. There are those who are just buying into their own propaganda. There is a root cancer going on in the hearts of so many people. And you know, the truth is, there are honorable institutions, and yes, local churches that fall under the spell of envy. Before you know it, what God intended for good begins to be tainted because of the sin of envy. We start to think, well, you know what? Let's see what we can do about, you know, bringing that fella down a notch. Let's attack the guy down the street. Let's build ourselves up by putting someone else down. You know, we thought it was wrong when our children did it. We acknowledged that it was wrong when our parents told us that it was, but here we are now as adults doing the same thing. You see, I can tell you right now, removing envy solves most class problems, most issues, most concerns today. Just about any concern that you might have, any political concern you might have, any concern regarding country, institutions, government, church, ministry, whatever the case may be, you remove envy from the equation and you'll pretty much solve the problem. If in fact that's the case, what do you think might happen if we allowed for the Lord to have His way with us, and every time a little bit of envy begins to percolate and begins to surface, we ask for the Lord to give us strength to shut it down. I mean, shut it down. Because you know, the truth is, most of us know we're suffering and struggling with the issue of envy before anybody else knows. Because we're all happy about everybody and what they're doing. But inside, we can't stand it. World leaders have been affected by envy. Alexander the Great permitted no praise for his generals because it detracted from him. How about that? I mean, look at the attitude of Nero. Look at all of those that we read about in the Bible. Every single one of them demonstrated their acumen when it came to exercising the sin of envy. Envy often occurs with limited knowledge. And that's really the real problem today. You know, as a pastor, too many times somebody will begin to have a conversation with me about somebody, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They don't know this problem, the problems that this person has. They don't know what's really going on. But you know, it's amazing how with just a lack of information, we can be so cutting and so judgmental and so quick to point a finger or accuse someone of something. That's right. It often occurs with limited knowledge. If we knew all about all of those who we admire, who we think are wonderful and great, all of the wealthy ones, all of the talented people, all of those that are just absolutely getting everything that we've ever wanted, if we knew everything, we wouldn't want to be them. I mean, how crazy is it that our kids can name more movie stars than Bible figures? And hey, listen, before we say amen too loudly, how about you? Who's got your heart? What matters most to you? What does your heart go pitter-pat about? How do we correct this? What kind of course correction needs to be made, and what can be done? You see, there is a remedy. God doesn't point this sin out so that you'll just continue to suffer. He wants you to have victory. I'm preaching to you, this pastor and each and every one of us, all of us know that this is the kind of subtle sin that destroys. First of all, do some of the things, be proactive. You want to sit around and be envious? Oh, you say, I'm not really struggling with this, preacher. Yet, ask yourself this question. Before you put your head on the pillow tonight, ask yourself if there's anyone that you have been envious of just today. Anyone in your family, anyone at church, anyone at work, anyone at school, anyone at all. Anything, any situation, any circumstance. Have you gone to bed with a clear conscience knowing that you haven't been spending time, wasting God's time, stewing over something that means nothing? What do you do about it? What's the best way to deal with any sin in our life? How about we fill up our time with things that honor and glorify the Lord? What do you think? Here's one. Count your blessings. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Just put that on there and loop it over and over. That's my special music for this morning. Hey, listen. The envious are always comparing their lot with the more fortunate. Try contrasting with the less fortunate. Stop and consider. Hey, how many of you actually had a bed to sleep in last night? Man, there's about 50% of you. Where do you guys sleep? It's like, I don't know. Hey, how many of us have been getting plenty to eat? How many of us are so happy to get invited out to dinner? How many of us are overwhelmed when we stop and we consider how God has blessed our lives over the years? Over and over and over and over and over and over again, when we think that things can't get any worse, God comes along and does something amazing. And all we have to do is go back. Yeah, that's right. God worked amazingly in that situation. Check mark. Oh yes, I remember well that very, very difficult time. God just absolutely done a miracle. Check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark, check mark. I'm telling you, all you got to do is stop and count your blessings. You can't help but say, my, nobody needs to be envious of anybody else if they're a born-again Christian. That's just the truth. As a matter of fact, wouldn't it be wonderful if more people envied your relationship with the Lord? Amen. And you were able to turn that to being a blessing to them and help them? If you're having a tough time with envy and self-focus, get off of your wallet and get something done for the Lord. How about visiting a children's home or a nursing home? How about looking for opportunities to help folks that are less fortunate? You say, I don't know where they're at. That's because you haven't been looking. How about you stop and consider what the Lord might want to do in your heart if you take your mind off of yourself and you put your mind and your heart and your spirit into being a blessing for somebody else. Here's one. Learn to love excellence for its own sake. When we love excellence because it honors and glorifies the Lord, that we do the very best that we can do, we begin to get the message. We begin to understand what it is the Lord wants from us. He doesn't want you to be the best. He wants your very best. And He wants you to do what you do for all the right reasons, in the right spirit, with the right heart, and then watch what the Lord will do. It's not important who plays lovely music as long as the right note is sounded. I'm here to tell you, if we'll do our best and give glory to the Lord, and He be our motivation, our love for Him, we're going to be headed in the right direction. And I do believe this. It's absolutely amazing what the Lord can get accomplished when we're not worried about who gets the credit. And that goes for the pastor, that goes for the leadership of the church, that goes for each and every born-again Christian in this room. And I'm here to tell you, I don't want to hear about another church that began to lose that right spirit or began to go in the wrong direction, because what God was doing in a marvelous way began to be infested with or infected by the sin in me. Oh Lord, help us all. Amen. Let's all stand together.